Asia is in big trouble. Many countries are on the verge of collapse, crippled by debt, runaway inflation, and unstable governments. Across the region, food is running out, jobs are disappearing, and millions are losing hope. If you think things are bad where you live, wait until you see what's happening in these 8 Asian nations. From economic meltdowns to political chaos, these countries are teetering on the edge of disaster. Stay with us as we reveal the shocking truth behind their downfall. 8. Afghanistan. Afghanistan is in a severe humanitarian crisis, with millions facing food shortages and limited access to healthcare. After years of war and instability, the country remains in economic freefall. Essential services such as clean water and electricity are scarce, and mass displacement has left thousands struggling to survive. The economy is in shambles, with the banking system nearly paralyzed and cash availability extremely limited. Foreign aid, once the lifeline of Afghanistan, has dwindled significantly due to international sanctions and the restrictions imposed by the Taliban government. Inflation is skyrocketing, making basic goods unaffordable for many. Unemployment has surged as businesses shut down, plunging the population deeper into poverty. Politically, the country remains highly unstable. Corruption and internal power struggles prevent any meaningful reforms. The Taliban's rule has further isolated Afghanistan from the international community, leading to a worsening economic and humanitarian disaster. Without major intervention, Afghanistan's collapse seems inevitable. 7. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is facing one of its worst economic collapses in history. Inflation has skyrocketed, and the national currency has lost significant value. Years of financial mismanagement and excessive borrowing have left the country drowning in debt. Foreign exchange reserves are at record lows, making it nearly impossible to import essential goods like food, fuel, and medicine. The situation has led to widespread unrest, with citizens protesting against the government's inability to provide basic necessities. Fuel shortages have caused transportation chaos, while power outages have crippled businesses. Unemployment is soaring, and families are struggling to afford daily meals. Debt to international lenders, including China and the IMF, has left Sri Lanka in a desperate situation. Without urgent economic reforms and international aid, the country risks long-term instability and a complete breakdown of its financial system. Six. Myanmar. Myanmar is in turmoil, caught in the grip of a prolonged civil conflict. Ethnic clashes and military crackdowns have displaced thousands, leaving the economy in ruins. Inflation is out of control, and the local currency is rapidly losing value, making basic necessities unaffordable for many. The conflict has crippled Myanmar's industries, particularly agriculture and manufacturing. With businesses shutting down and investment fleeing the country, unemployment has skyrocketed. The banking sector is struggling, and international sanctions have only worsened the crisis. Diplomatically, Myanmar remains isolated. Relations with Western nations have soured due to human rights abuses, and neighboring countries remain cautious in their engagements. Without stability, Myanmar's economy will continue to crumble, pushing millions further into poverty. 5. Lebanon. Lebanon's financial system is collapsing, with its currency losing nearly all its value. The banking sector is in ruins, and inflation has made even basic necessities unaffordable. Foreign reserves have been depleted, forcing the government to rely on external aid, which is quickly running out. Political paralysis has further deepened Lebanon's crisis. Corruption and mismanagement have led to widespread protests and demands for systemic change. With an unstable government and no clear path to recovery, Lebanon's future looks bleak. Infrastructure is crumbling, hospitals lack basic medical supplies, and schools are struggling to function. Public services are at a breaking point, and the economy shows no signs of recovery. If these issues persist, Lebanon risks falling into an even deeper humanitarian disaster. 4. Pakistan. Pakistan is experiencing an unprecedented economic meltdown. Inflation is soaring, foreign reserves are depleting rapidly, and the country's heavy reliance on external loans has led to a vicious cycle of debt and austerity. Essential goods such as food and fuel are becoming increasingly unaffordable for the population. Political instability has further worsened the crisis. Frequent leadership changes and infighting among political factions have made governance difficult. Corruption and mismanagement have eroded public trust, leading to widespread protests and uncertainty. Security challenges continue to plague Pakistan, with internal insurgencies and border conflicts straining resources. Terrorist activities and sectarian violence have further destabilized the country. Without urgent reforms and stability, Pakistan's economy will continue to deteriorate. 3. Laos. Laos is facing an economic disaster fueled by skyrocketing inflation and a rapidly devaluing currency. The country's heavy reliance on foreign debt, particularly from China, has left it struggling to maintain basic economic functions. Tourism, once a key industry, has collapsed, and exports remain limited, deepening the financial crisis. Infrastructure is crumbling, with power shortages and failing transportation networks disrupting daily life. Public services, including healthcare and education, are severely underfunded. The government's increasing restrictions have sparked growing unrest, further widening the gap between leadership and the people. With Laos's debt piling up and little economic growth, the country risks deeper social and economic fragmentation. Without urgent reforms, the financial collapse will only worsen. 2. Syria. Syria remains in a state of destruction after years of war, with entire cities reduced to rubble. The economy is in ruins, with basic necessities like food, water, and electricity scarce. International sanctions have made recovery nearly impossible, and corruption is rampant. Millions of Syrians remain displaced, either in refugee camps or forced to flee the country. Inflation is soaring, and the government is struggling to provide even the most basic services. The healthcare system is barely functioning, and education is in crisis. Without international intervention, Syria will continue to spiral into deeper economic and humanitarian disaster, with no end in sight. 1. North Korea. North Korea is facing one of its worst economic crises in decades. With severe food shortages, a collapsing currency, and increased international sanctions, the country is on the brink of disaster. The government's strict control over the economy has led to extreme poverty for most citizens, while the elite remain insulated from the crisis. The nation's isolationist policies have cut it off from essential trade, worsening shortages of food, medicine, and fuel. Despite its nuclear ambitions, North Korea's economy is crumbling. Smuggling and black market activities have increased, but they are not enough to support the millions struggling with starvation. If the situation does not improve, North Korea could face an internal collapse like never before. Conclusion: these 8 Asian countries are facing economic collapse, political instability, and social unrest. With inflation soaring, currencies devaluing, and governments failing, millions are suffering under extreme conditions. What do you think? Will these countries recover, or is their downfall inevitable? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates on global issues.